I'd like to use this footage to talk about color correction. This is footage of the same person in the same outfit in different lighting conditions. And I'll be able to give you these clips to play with. Let's just look at the first clip. And what I'd like to do is I would like to be able to have a look at the video scopes that tell us what colors are dominant in this image. And if I go under the little wrench that is under the window, I could go show all scopes. And basically it takes the place of the composite video image, and it shows us some different things. First of all, the upper left-hand corner is the waveform monitor. And that waveform monitor talks about luminance, from dark at the bottom to light at the top. And we want that range to be from 0 to 100, inside of that range. So we're safe there. Then at the vector scope is the circle image, and the vector scope is now extending the highlight along this line, and this line is generally known as the flesh tone line, and it's true for all races and all individuals. We're pretty close here. We could do a little adjustment. It might be a little bit on the right side of that, the red side of that line. The next one to look at is the RGB parade, and sorry about that message. The RGB parade shows us that there's more red, especially at the higher end of the luminance, and less green and blue at that range. And we can see that in the image. So if we go back to the composite video image, we can see that this is at the higher end of the spectrum in the sky, and in her outfit we have quite a bit of red. So let's see if we can get the reference monitor window, let's see, reference monitor under window, to open up separately. And that way, when we adjust the effects, we can look at it, look at these monitors. I'm going to put it down in the lower left-hand corner. I'm going to go to Effect Controls, and the way that we control what happens on these monitors and in the image is to actually add a video effect that color corrects. So one thing we can do is we can use the three-way color corrector, which we've talked about before, or we can use RGB curves, and I'm going to try that one. I kind of like that one because I'm a Photoshop person. So as we change this, we could choose to show split view so that we see the difference, but I'm just going to try moving some things around. So if I were to look at the highlight and shadow here, let's look at that one first, and actually I could change it just to the waveform monitor, I believe. There we go, YC waveform. Now we can see very small number 100 there, and we can see if we look over to the right, we see this line that shows the full range. In other words, there must be a little bit of white that goes all the way up there, and then this bar ends down here and 0 is here. So I think the whole range could come down a little bit. So I'm going to grab the middle of the master value and pull straight down a little bit, and this should bring down the highlights a little bit. I'm actually going to grab the top right and put this back because I think it's actually more about just the highlight than the overall value. So I'm going to bring that down. Now what we see is this line is now lined up with 100 and goes down fairly far. We could even choose to lower this part even more if we wanted to stretch down more towards 100. But the range is not too bad. We might want even a little bump here to bring up the middle tone of that area. That looks, we're going to be looking at the image and we're going to be looking at the waveform, and that looks pretty good in both cases. Now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the RGB, oh not YCB, sorry, RGB parade. This tells us the amount of red. So what we're going to do now is we're going to grab the upper end of the red and just pull that down a little bit. And what that does is it neutralizes some of the red in the figure and in the sky. You know, maybe slightly too much, I don't know. We might want to pull up the bottom too, also of the red. And we're really neutralizing this color at this point. If we thought the blue needed to come up a little bit, we could go into the blue and pull up a little there. I think it's okay actually, but yeah, I think it's fine. So this is the way we would correct color, and then we would have to match it to this other color, and it actually matches much better now that we have this effect correction on it. If we turn off RGB curves and then we look at the next image, this seems so much pinker than this, right? Let's put it back on and try showing the split view. So the split view shows you the before and after. We can move that split to show less or more of the new image, and then we can turn it off, okay? So the next step would be to look at the two together, to look at this image and then look at this image, and we might see immediately that this image is way too bright, right? We can see its RGB parade. It's also very blue. We would need to double click to bring that image up, to add the RGB curves, to go into the waveform monitor and try and bring down the highlights, right? And deepen the value overall and see if we can get a better spread there. Let's see if we can bring up that part, down this part. Maybe, I think we didn't put quite that much contrast in there. An S-curve adds contrast. Maybe we don't need quite that much contrast. The other thing is I actually think it has still a little bit, no, if it has too much red. Let's go back and forth. This is certainly a softer image, right? And this image is much harder because of the light. And in fact, it changes over time. So I think we might have actually, I wonder if we changed this over time. I don't think we added a keyframe. Anyway, after you have done all of these color effects, and we can now look at, I'm sorry, let's look at RGB Parade before we leave here. RGB, I keep doing that wrong. Let's see if we can lower the central part of the blue a little bit in this image and raise the bottom tones of the red a little bit. It seems like a little too much. Have to keep using your eyes, right? There we go. Let's spread out the blue a little bit. And lower it. Maybe a little too dark here. Okay. After you've completed your color, then you can go about continuing to edit. So I'm going to stop at this point and